to our next speaker now, Luisa Gentile, and she joins us from the land of Cambodia. She's the director, Professionals Doing Good, and she has a thought to share something very interesting. When I looked at the topic, I was like, wow, I wouldn't have heard of this. It is from Volun-tourism to Volun-transformation, a more impactful approach to Cambodia. I am very curious to know what this topic is going to be about. And if Luisa Gentile, if you are already on Zoom, and I can see the big smile right there. Lovely to see her right here. So over to you, Louise. The floor is yours. Waiting to hear you.
And
thank you, Dr. Pauline, one more time.
Thank you so much. Let me try, first of all, to share a presentation myself, just to see and support. I hope you can see it. So good evening. Hello, everybody. My name is Luisa Gentile, Italian, but I left Italy 20 years ago. I'm the founder of Professionals Doing Good in Cambodia. And as you say, today we'll talk about a different perspective of volunteering, volun-tourism. So let's start from myself. Big advocate of volunteering myself. I've been dealing with volunteers for over 20 years. Happily, still very happily, in my different roles in different organizations, from human resources to corporate social responsibility, in diverse sector, corporate education, non-for-profit, in Italy, UK, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Cambodia. Yes, and big fun about it. In this picture, which is blurred for privacy purposes, you can see a beautiful, which I still remember, volunteering experience done by women for women. We've been training on entrepreneurship to female women in Saudi Arabia, something to talk about, very exciting. I was so excited about volunteerism myself, and we talked about, how it's useful for people who are doing it, for companies who are doing it, because it's supporting, the people's engagement, that eventually I decided to become a volunteer myself. So I was in a sort of, like many, mid-career, what to do. I'm not interested more in moving up into my career, what I'm going to do. I decided to take a break. Actually, even my husband decided to take a break. So we resigned from our job. So we took a gap year. We went to Cambodia for 3 years. For 3 months, sorry, that eventually became 9 years. So that was planned at the beginning. And I decided to be myself a volunteer, but a skilled volunteer. I wanted to do something meaningful by giving back the skills I was having. So I thought, I'm having 20 plus years of experience. I would like to give it back to somebody. So I started as a pro bono mentor to a newly hired director of an NGO. Then I worked myself as an NGO director pro bono. I was the executive director. I was a board member. You name it, you have it. Wherever I saw myself fit, I did it with massive enthusiasm. What you see in this picture is me supporting the director of a non-for-profit, a female non-for-profit in Cambodia. We will talk about strategic planning. And this is us again, her face is blurred for privacy purposes. Enjoying, how to support, the principle of teaching people how to fish rather than fishing myself. I was there, massive enthusiasm, until, like in any story, something happened. What happened? I was the foreigner in most of the organization I support. So eventually I also been asked in any position I did to manage volunteers. There were many volunteers from abroad in Cambodia. I was a foreigner myself, and my colleagues, Cambodian, were very much relieved if somebody could manage them on their behalf. And that's the story. So this is where I met, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, with the bad and ugly of the so-called volun-tourism. Volun-tourism is an acronym, just to be on the same page, about volunteering for tourism purposes. So what people do, they come over. Cambodia is a beautiful place. I mean, the nature, the culture, the history, and people are very still willing to come over, visit the place. But nowadays it's about doing a different experience, not just seeing the place, but being with people in the community and do something meaningful. What I the difference for me, for the very first side, I was not sending volunteers. I was not organizing volunteering activities. I was on the receiver side. So I was the host. I was the one receiving people coming over. And it was like being on the other side of the mirror. All of a sudden, volunteers went back home, re-energized, happy, touched, whatever experience I've been doing, I think was a positive experience, but I remained, my team remained, my colleagues remained, the community, again, I was not a visitor, I was living and working with, they remained. My experience, first time ever after 20 years, so was quite frankly really a shock to me. I witnessed all the things that could go wrong when you're trying to do it right. And I witnessed when the heart is in the right place, can just do harm involuntarily, because trust me, all the volunteers, I heard previous speakers say we don't have volunteers. Well, you know, we have plenty, even way too many volunteers, but they are voluntourists. And that's the flip side of it. It's not anything new when I talk about volun-tourism. In Cambodia, we've been having this issue for many years, in such a way that many colleagues of mine, many directors or volunteers managers, they started to refuse accepting volunteers from abroad. They started to say, you know what? No, they come over for 5 days with such eagerness and willingness to help, but they know nothing about Cambodia. They know nothing about the culture. They know nothing about what's going on here, let alone the language. So it became a very frustrating experience for both of us. The pitfalls of voluntarism is something serious. Here, what you can see is a picture of a very famous campaign we're having here. It's not new, but it's still very much powerful, that it says, children are not a touristic attraction. That was related to the scam of orphanages. I think you've read it. Again, it's nothing new, where fake orphanages were created just for the sake of attracting people and then receiving money. So the issue number one I really faced, being on the other side of the fence, the other side of the mirror, was number one, the exploitation of vulnerable communities. The beneficiaries, so to speak, being children, unacceptable, women, but even animals, or even the nature, you name it, you have it, they were like turned into marketing tools to to attract funds and resources. There was also a commodification on voluntourism turned into voluntourism. Again, people that came over and they visit me, they wanted to do it right. I mean, 99% of people traveling all the way through to this country, and instead of staying in the swimming pool, they wanted to do something useful for the community. Again, the heart was in the right place, but this is the question. Can you imagine what it's like when you book an experience, like you are in front of your computer, you have a website and you click where you want to go, Cambodia, when you want to go from 5 to 10 of January, what you want to do, help kids. Next step, pay with your credit card, done. These are not supporting volunteers. These are touristic agencies in disguise. But I think this is a multi-millionaire business. People are willing to do it, and those organizations are taking advantage of people wanting to do good. The other thing that really put me off was that the volunteering experience was based around the volunteer. So it was a self-fulfillment, volunteer-centered experience that was built to please and to entertain the volunteer. So it was designed around them and not the other way around. On top of my head, I remember we were having this wall around the been painted endlessly number of times by volunteers, because they were coming over, they were visiting the non-for-profit, and we organized these activities just to entertain them. I remember the same English book being taught and endlessly times, the same 3 chapters. And I think we never went after the letter C. Basically, every volunteer, there were lots of students in their gap year. They were starting all over again, teaching the same stuff over and over. And again, I remember again this field of, going back to my memories, this field of morning glory. Morning glory is a beautiful herb that we use as a food, particularly for kids. And I remember this group of families being entertained into planting morning glory in the wrong time of the year, or in small size that was really useless in reality, just for the sake of supporting the community. I can go on forever. I have an endless list of things that we were building for Volun-tourists to come over and to entertainment. The last one that was really annoying me was the paternalistic belief that development work is, something that anybody could do. So anybody could come over as long as they had the resources, the time, the willingness. They could come over and do something, even without having the skills. Anybody could paint the wall, but anybody could teach English. Anybody could play with children. Our job in the development work was really something simple that anybody coming from abroad could do. Really annoying, really annoying. Reality is, I thought of giving up at a certain point. I resigned, and I did. I resigned from any NGO's activity I've been doing so far, and I went to the drawing board thinking, what can I do? I mean, I cannot stop volunteerism. People will come. They do. They love, particularly now after COVID. I have piles of requests on my desk. So there was no point of saying, don't come, you are bad, stay at home, you are exploiting us. No point. But I wanted to find a way that was, in what way I can help really this country? What is the needs? What is the urgency? And in what way I can use these volunteers who wanted to come over to support the urgency? And that was striking me, the skills gap. The skills gap is really an issue in Cambodia. Skills gap is a mismatch between the skills that people have and what is needed in order for them to have a proper and dignified job. And because the Cambodian population is 75% is so young, is below 35 years of age, if you support people by doing that, well, then you will help a lot the community. And in this way, I used what it was also, we talked about this, I heard a couple of speakers talking about skill-based volunteering, which was about empowering through skills, building capacity, passing your expertise through others. But in Cambodia was really new. And I decided to have my time, a small fight, focusing on this solution, on capacity building of local organization. My small drop in the water, but that was it. And this is why I decided to create this tiny, I have to say it's a niche, but Cambodia is even a small place, called Professionals Doing Good. Since 2017, it's a social enterprise. It connects long-term skilled professionals with meaningful volunteer projects here in Cambodia. Our goal is really to foster, I want to read it because I want to say it right, to foster positive change by ensuring that volunteers are well matched with projects and their effort contributes to the community needs and it is sustainable. I want to share 3 real examples of what I've meant by skill-based volunteering. These were 3 volunteers that I've met in person because remember, I'm here. Volunteers and being in London or being in any special office, I'm here, I see them, I meet them, I work with them, I support them, I have dinner, breakfast, and I welcome them. So, and some of them became even friends. Colin, a beautiful biologist from Australia, he came over, he worked in a training lab of a local NGO that was working on water and sanitation. And he trained the staff, and this is a picture of him with a Cambodian lab specialist, and he spent his 3 months passing his knowledge and expertise on how to do better water tests. It was helping her to having more expertise. It was helping the NGO and massive fulfillment for him because he felt like he was leaving a legacy, and he built also a good friendship. Yusul, she was a nutritionist from South Korea. Her English was shaky, and it's amazing how, regardless, she managed to work with teachers and kitchen staff of a Cambodian school, and together they revised the menu of the kids' meal at school to make it more nutritious and to make it according to the health and safety standard. Another great example is Mikey. Mikey was a retired IT manager from the US. He's been supporting an NGO from 6 to 8 months without ever setting a foot in Cambodia. He worked from home and he set up a website, and he was amazing in his way of supporting without even being there from abroad. And I have to say that working from abroad was how I kept the professionals doing good afloat during COVID. For 3 years, of course, the country was sealed. We were closed because of COVID. And that way, working from home was really a life-saving experience that I managed to get to keep the organization alive, and also to make sure that many people were at home doing nothing, but that would be another big story. So what we do differently? How are the key marks in the way that I manage volunteer differently and to fight volun-tourism? Community-centered project. I really start from the need in the community. So I don't want it to be volunteer-centered. It has to be NGO-centered. So I start with the NGO. They contact me, and I have like a list really here now of them asking for volunteer projects. So I interviewed them. I asked, what is your need? What type of skills or project or task you need? And this is the starting point. Then I focus only, and that's a decision, on long-term skilled volunteers. So unqualified, short-term volunteers, no, it's a big no for me. Long-term means 3 months. There is nothing really you can do here in Cambodia for a shorter period of time. Nothing, trust me. 3 months, it's the adequate amount of time to make a certain difference. And by skilled, I mean qualified. I don't mean with a degree, I mean people with a qualification. Then what I do a matching. Thanks to my background in HR, I'm resuming it again. So what I do, I make a match between the needs of the NGO, the skills of the volunteer, and this is where the magic happens. I always say that volunteer is a task. People come over here as if it were a job. Sometimes NGO look for employees. I'm sorry, no. Volunteering, even for 3 months, can be only a task. I use and try to mentor NGOs to say, smart, simple, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound task that can be done in 3 months. It's, in a way, it's, fulfilling for the volunteer, and it's fulfilling for the organization as well. Local jobs are for locals. Yes, please. I mean, we don't send painters from the US. A painting job is being done by local. I do a lot of supporting roles. I mean, I know that working in an office is not as sexy as working on the field with volunteers, but it's something that is really useful because people in the office are really equipped to work, to deal with volunteers. And this is where it's more an equal relationship. Out of no's, endless. Out of 8 applications, 10 applications just to come over to the country because I do a rigorous screening. It's not just about the skills, it's also about the quality and the attitude. This key element, and then I'm closing my presentation, for those people that want to come over without the skills, I try to give the principle of reciprocity. Reciprocity means if you don't do it at home, why doing it here? Would you teach English at home? Would you like your kids to be taught English by an unskilled, unqualified person just because he wants to be useful? Well, then don't do it here. Then humility is really key. You have to come over with empathy. I heard a lot about empathy here. And in fact, empathy is key. Understand, listen before even you go and act and work. And mutual learning. This is the real transformational activity. You don't just teach, but it's always the other way around. It's a mutual relationship where you learn from the person that you're helping as much as this person is working you. It's really making a more equal and balanced relationship between the two. I know that this is a drop in the water, as it's a tiny drop, and I'm not going to change and fight volun-tourism, but I still believe that this is a good, ethical, and effective way to help the people. As I said, teach them how to fish can really leave a legacy. And I'm quite happy, even if it's a small, when you know small is good. So thank you for having me today. It was very good to be here, even though here is almost 2 in the morning. If you want to find me, you can find me on my website, Professionals Doing Good, on LinkedIn, or you can send me an email. Thank you so much for having me tonight.